Welcome back to the Barry Charles Footy Show, your one-stop shop for everything rugby league. And I thought I would get into this debate about what we heard about with James Graham and the likes on his podcast. I thought I would put my 2 cents worth in terms of what I think the season should look like for the NRL going forward. So we're going to look at the origin debate. Should it stay where it is? Should it go to the end of the season like it did in 2020 and then have international football straight after that? Should they look at putting an NRL draft in? Where should, to me, they're going towards 20 teams, and where should those 3 teams come from? Where do they look to grow the game in the competition? It's going to be an interesting one here, how they work on that in terms of the stockholder in the rugby league land. It's going to be interesting how they work all that out. But we're here right now to have a look at where rugby league can grow in the future. Let's have a look at it right here, right now. Let's debate all the big talking points out of that last couple of weeks show, and I thought I'd just give my thoughts on it. Let's have a look at it right here, right now. Okay, so let's start off here with the origin debate. Should Origin move to the end of the season and then have international football straight after that? The answer is, in theory, it sounds good, but at the end of the day, all the media scrutiny, all the talking points out of the game, if it's game after game after game, it's not going to get the momentum that the broadcasters want. And the broadcasters get big views in the winter time because there's no real big games on in the winter, but this is the biggest game in town, and over that 9-week period to have all the talk about Origin, or even 12 weeks with the selections and everything, it's a big talking point throughout the mid-season of the competition. It's not going to change anytime soon. It's the biggest ratings of the NRL all season long, even higher than the grand final. That is why Origin is where it is. And there's no point changing something that is not broken, even though I have agreed in the past about moving it. But at the end of the day, it's not going to happen. But where they could make a difference here, and this is where I think the future is heading with these teams going forward, is that we're going to have 20 teams in the competition. Yes, 20 teams, folks, in the competition. And we're going to split into 2 groups of 10. Now, there's an interesting way to look at it. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but you could argue you could go to 10 Sydney teams, and that's 1 comp right there. Add another Sydney team, boom, that's 10 there. I don't think it's going to be a very hard one if you have to pick it into splitting Sydney in half. It's going to be very hard. I'd say, if you want to go down there, so you have the 10 Sydney teams, and then all the other teams play off. Then the top Sydney team will take on the best from Brisbane, New Zealand, all that, and in a super final sort of thing, just like the NFL. I like the concept, but I don't know how you fit all these teams into a nice sort of fit outs. Just having a Sydney comp. Travel-wise, it would be alright for them, but the other ones, they'll be travelling all over the show. I can't see that working, so I think they're going to have to split the Sydney clubs. But let's firstly just go, if we're looking at that sort of system, if you had that system, so you have them all play each other. So you have a home and away season with these clubs, so there'll be 18 games. 18 games. Then the top 2, then you can have a semi-final and then a final. So the top 4 make it first, the first versus 4th, and second versus 3rd. It's a tough one because because 4th could just get it done. No, actually, I've changed my mind. If there's only 10 in it, the top team, they go straight through to the grand final, and teams 2 and 3 play off. Whoever wins that game takes on the top team, and there's 20 games there. And then 21 games when you add the super final on top of that. So that gives, and you can have the origin period just like they have currently in the midst, in amongst all this. It's not a problem at all, as continued. But it'll be over, so that's over a 21 game span instead of 27. Now, the broadcasters are not going to like that because they've got all these other games. But this is where they can do it. Have more international football every single year, folks. Yes. Have France, have Lebanon, have all teams, have 12 teams playing every single year. So you have Fiji, Cook Islands, Samoa, Tonga, New Zealand, Australia, England, France, Lebanon. Every team in the sun. If you want to get USA going, get them playing. Get all these teams playing and play them over like an 8-week period, whatever it is. You can have the USA and all that in one. Canada, add them into the list. Get them going. Have a group there. Have France and England, have their group. South Africa, do you want to go build the game over there? You have all these players. China, I don't know if you go there. India, this is all long-term plan. But you could have all these people playing rugby league and have a bigger international football season and still have their 9 weeks off after that. I really think they should look at doing, I think this is where the long-term strategy could be, and that would allow more game time and still have time for the rest at the end of the season. I think this would work perfectly, and it would put the stage up higher for more games and lift the standard of the international game. And you will see more of the USA players, and they come and play in the NRL. But I also do believe they've got to work on having a good, strong competition in New Zealand, because New Zealand's competition, they've had like Buttercup Cup or whatever it's called now, but it's just struggled. They need to get that professional competition built up there to build New Zealand. They're going to have more professional competitions in the US. They've got one at the moment, but they need to lift the standard there. Get a few more teams in France as well. They really need to build from the ground up. They really need to build from the ground up. But I like the 20-team competition. So who are the 3 teams to bring in, folks? Well, you could bring a Sydney team if you want to go with their 10 Sydney teams and the rest all travelling all around. I don't see that working. But yes, you can have an argument for WA, South Australia, Tasmania, Cairns, by itself, Northern Territory, obviously. But I think one of them clearly looks like the backing is to have one in Papua New Guinea. I think there will be another team in the Brisbane, North Queensland area. I think it's a big growing area, Rockhampton, somewhere around that way. I think there's enough there to warrant having another team there. I think that's where they're going to go. And a New Zealand team to get their rivalry. Have a Auckland team versus Christchurch or Wellington, whatever you want. If you want to have a South Island flavour. I think most teams do better in the South Island, but then you have Wellington and the Cake Tin with the big ground there. So it's a bit of a question mark where logistics go between those two, whether it's better to fly to Wellington or Christchurch. That's for them to decide, but I think that's where the 3 teams will come from. I think Western Australia, Tasmania, South Australia, I just think Tasmania is too small. I don't think anyone will travel there. And I think the same with Western Australia and South Australia. I just don't think they'll travel. The big players won't really travel there, and I think that's just and I think they realise that, and they will just promote the game in terms of taking origins and all that stuff there. But I think they really want to put that into perspective. So, yes, so to me, to have the competition, I think the easiest way, Parramatta, Penrith, West Tigers, and Cronulla maybe. I'm just trying to look at logistics here. Is Manly too far away? something like that. And then you'd have the Rabbitohs, Roosters, the Dragons, the more centralised teams. Manly maybe could be in that one, and Bulldogs could be in the low one, just depending. All closer together, keep the rivalries going. But yeah, Roosters and Rabbitohs definitely would be in one side of the draw. You got to have Penrith and the Eels in one, and then you split the other ones off. But you would have to have the two Kiwi teams in the one lock. Queensland, I think you could split 3 and 2 there. I think you could have. That's the interesting subplot, because you can have Sydney and just have all those Sydney teams play each other. But I think the travel, there'd be way too much travel if you just had all like Queensland, New Zealand. They'd just be traveling every second week all the time. But if you have the Sydney teams, it makes it a little bit easier on the Sydney teams. But it's an interesting concept to see if they would actually work. Yeah, so be interesting to see what you think of teams that could come in. Because, I mean, if you're looking to spread, I think you're going to have 2 in New Zealand. I think that's a gimme. PNG could be that up one that is up north as well, instead of putting an extra Brisbane team in there. But you could argue, yeah. So if you were going to say PNG is a Brisbane team, or I mean, at least a Queensland team, then where do you put, where would you push towards? You could argue another Sydney team. There's enough talk for Sydney, for North Sydney Bears. Get their rivalry with Manly. That could be another argument too. But probably WA if you're going to pick out of all these other ones. Yeah, South Australia as well. South Australia could have that little bit of rivalry. Canberra there, possibly. Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting twist on there's a lot of pros and cons to all these things. They're all probably well deserved to be in the comp and all, but it's all going to come down to money where they want to see it. So I think PNG is a lock. I think New Zealand, to me, should be a lock, but I think money could be an issue around whether they think there's enough money in New Zealand to grow it there. And yeah, and after that, it's probably a coin flip between quite a few ones for their third spot. But I think that's where the NRL is heading. And if they're heading that way, I think a draft has to come in. An NRL draft, yes. And what does that mean? Now, this is totally different, folks, to what is currently happening in the NRL. It's basically down to the clubs to promote everything. NRL take over the whole junior development everywhere in the world. Well, in Australia, New Zealand, in the islands. They control it all from NRL base. They employ all the staff. They train exactly the same no matter where they are. And they have training camps in New Zealand, training camps here. They do all the junior development. They do everything. They have them train. They get the best talent. They have training scouts. They have trainings. And then they get to a ranking system of the best 100 players, whatever it has to be. And you rank them 1 to 100. And you have the draft system from there. It will totally change this landscape, the Panthers and all that. And you will see changes, obviously. But I think a standardised training with a lot of... you have the players that are the people that are already involved in the junior development. All these ones come in and really get this going. Have the best of the best, and I think you'll see the development grow everywhere around the thing. If you get it more centralised, you see that everyone going there. You see Penrith doing well, and then you see other clubs struggling. I think that's where they should look at with going into the future. So yeah, in terms of junior development, I think NRL should take over it completely for every single team. That's the way I see the future of rugby league. Whether that happens, who knows? But I think Origins will just stay where it is. There's just no point changing it at this time. I would like to see the system come up with the 20 teams with the split. The pool, I was a bit sad that you won't play against every team and then having that super final. But they would open up the international game more to have more international play and really build the international game. Because at the moment, the international game in rugby is better than league. Simple as that, just for that code. But if league really want to go to that next level, you want to have the USA's, the Canada's strong. So they've got to build competitions, real strong competitions over there. England, I don't know what to do with England because England got the Super League going, but it really has been a basket case for a long time. all the old NRL players go there and they look like superstars. They need to do something about that. But obviously the money is the issue with the league over there, because you got a star footballer getting 100 mil a season or whatever it is, 20 million. Of course they're going to go to that too, instead of a salary cap sport and rugby league, and even rugby, a lot of money. That's the problem with England have. There's a lot of money. Even the league has that issue too. A lot of people going to rugby because they can get more money in rugby because there's no salary cap. So that's an issue going forward. The competition is good how it is. If we go back to the old school ways with money, and it's going to be an interesting one here, but I would really like to see a draft. I think just evens the playing field because everyone had the best talent. Even though it's a bit sad for a local grown talent to keep snacky in New Zealand, but they can always do trades and all that. It'll just be something else for us to watch as footy fans. But anyway, that's just a little bit about the talking points around the rugby league at the moment, and see where the future holds. But thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel, share it with all your friends, and I'll be back with plenty more videos in the future. Have an awesome day out there.